know, it's our first. Hello, it's our first webinar about European section in our association. International Association of Juvenile and Family Judges and Magistrates. It's something that we represent worldwide effort to establish links between judges from different countries, but also with other international associations working in the sector of the protection of youth and family. It promotes research on international problems facing the operation of courts and various laws relating to youth and family. Membership in our association is about with the national association, but also with committed individuals from all parts of the globe who exercise function as youth or family court judges or functions with professional services directly linked to youth and family justice or welfare. We are publishing also our chronicle, organizing our events. Today, I am so grateful that all these marvelous people are with me. So I introduce to you our invited speakers. It's Avril Calder, Renate Winter, Eduardo Meldo, and also Jorge Jimenez Martin. I'm not sure that I pronounced very well. I'm sorry. So for the first, I think we will hear a little bit about our history. So Avril Calder was a magistrate for 35 years, sitting exclusively in two specialized courts, Inner London Youth Court and Inner London Family Proceedings Court. She was president of the British Juvenile and Family Court Society. She was also the president of our association. And from 2006 to 2018, Avril was also editor-in-chief of our chronicle. Avril, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Lana. And first of all, I have to say hello to everyone, because as you realized earlier, it's nice to touch base with friends from a long time ago, but it's also lovely to see that new members who I don't know are with us here this evening. The first seminar of Lana Krzyżanczyk's term of office. Welcome to our European chairman tonight. Thank you, Lana. It's been lovely of you to invite me to speak, and it is lovely to be here. As you know, my talk will briefly outline the history of our international association, which is soon to be celebrating its 100th birthday. I say soon, even though our origins go back more than 100 years, to before the First World War. What I will say falls into four parts: our origin and mission, congresses and chronicle, both of which address our mission, and the guidelines. So to begin with the origin, as you know, the origins of courts for children, known as juvenile courts, go back to 1899, when the first such court was established in Chicago. But in 1908, juvenile courts started in the UK and Canada, and in 1912 in France and Belgium. And a big figure in those years was a Frenchman, Edouard Henri Juliet. He wasn't a lawyer and he wasn't a judge. He was an engineer and a financier. But his father was president of the Court of Appeal in Dijon. So perhaps that's where his interest started. Juliet was in the US from 1902 to 1905. And interestingly, he crossed the Atlantic 24 times in those days, in 3 years. And during his time there, he became interested in the sea change that had occurred in separating out children from adults in justice systems. In 1906, he wrote and had published a book, Les Tribunaux Spéciaux pour Enfants, with Juge Henri Rollet. And this took into account the lessons that they had learned at a 1906 seminar. This was followed up in 1911 with the International Congress in Paris. It is said that there were 300 delegates from France, the US, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Spain, Great Britain, Switzerland, Hungary, and Italy. I think that's impressive, given the difficulties of corresponding in those days and traveling. From the start, it's clear that the international dimension was pivotal, as judges and systems were trying to work out from scratch how to set up courts that worked in the interests of children. So in 1911, they set up an international commission, and this is a quote, to pull together the emerging principles and to make preparations for a second Congress. But the Great War stopped that, obviously. So it wasn't until 1928 that the next Congress, Child Protection, with some of the same movers and shakers, we would say, from 1911 involved. And at that time, they provided an embryonic international association with a provisional executive. Chief among them was, as president, Henri Rollet from France, and the vice president was Juge Paul Wetz from Belgium. The secretary came from Germany, and then there was another representative from Germany, one from Hungary, one from Spain, Jorge, and one from Poland. Finally, in 1930, the absolute first Congress, when we started counting them, took place. And the association's name was, in English I will say it, the International Association of Children's Judges, known as AIJE, Association Internationale de Jeunesse, I guess, or Juge des Enfants. The statutes were ratified and AIJE registered in Brussels. We cannot claim to be the first international association for children, and that honor falls to two others. The International Association for the Protection of Children, created in 1921 in Brussels, and this was influential at the League of Nations when, as you will know, in 1924, the Declaration of Children's Rights was declared. And the other one was the International Union for the Protection of Children, created in 1920. That was formed, the children were starving across Europe following the Great War. And so there was a British organization working with Save the Children Fund, working with the Red Cross, and they put together this Union for the Protection of Children. However, we can say that we are different because we are based on individual volunteering. And Judge Wetz, who was a very big figure, said the AIJE must be a place of cordiality, which we are, and brotherhood, which we are, between the men of goodwill that are the judges of the children of all countries. I really rather like that. To this day, we're registered in Brussels, although we spent a very enlivening 15 to 20 years at the Institute of the Rights of the Child in Sion, where Jean Zematin, a former president, was in charge. Our statutes and name may have been altered to suit the times. For example, the introduction of family and magistrates into our name. And there were Ret Royal in 58, 63, 78, 98, 2018 to reflect the changes. But the mission essentially remains the same. To paraphrase, and I will be repeating Lana's introduction a little bit, we are concerned with the protection of youth and family, with offending by under 18s, with the research into the maladjustment of the young, with the worldwide body of knowledge and experiences of 100 years plus into those issues. And our membership is comprised of national associations, committed individuals from all parts of the globe who work as professionals linked to youth and family justice systems. And I'd just like to say that professionals covers all those, from legal representatives, prosecutors, guardians ad litem, to social workers, professors, etc., who work in child justice systems. We are an inclusive association. So that's a little about our origins. The congresses, well, as I said, counting from 1930, our next Congress will be our 22nd. That is quite an achievement for an association funded only by ourselves and served by our abilities and interests. I must add to that since 2018, we have been part of a consortium for congresses with Terre des Hommes and Penal Reform International. I can safely say that without the consortium, we would not have been able to put on the 28th Congress by ourselves. And it had been, historically, a tricky business for some years to get funding from governments or elsewhere for such a large project. Dates, places, content, and declarations of congresses are available, I believe, online. But briefly, there was a second Congress in Brussels before the Second World War in 1935, which looked at national and international perspectives on youth courts versus youth protection. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So between 1950 and 1958, there were 3 more congresses in Belgium, and then we expanded. Naples, 62, Paris, 66, Brussels again in 70, Oxford, 74, Montreal, 78, Amsterdam, 82, Rio de Janeiro, 86, Turin, 90, Bremen, 94, Buenos Aires, 98, Melbourne, 2002, Belfast, 2006, Amamet, 2010, where we had the first European section meeting, Paris, 2018, Mexico online, 2021, and Madrid last year, a hybrid event. The issues, while presented slightly differently at each Congress, remain essentially the same, as you might expect. I've selected a few. Specialization and training, conflicts between the child and society, interventions justified by relations between child and parent, magistrates, child, family, and community, environmental pressures on young people and families, children, politics, and society. Rights, though not appearing in any titles that I have seen, have been present from the start. The tension between the expertise of magistrates and those serving the courts, between children's rights, parental rights, and the rights of others and of society at large, have always been felt by practitioners. In 1954, Judge Knutel of the Netherlands was vice president of the association and said, "The more scientifically founded our decisions are, the more they are personalized, the greater the danger that they're misunderstood. The judge must therefore exercise the arbitration between the general prophylaxis, that is the prevention of crime, social protection, and the rights of citizens." As we know, the 1989 UN Convention on the Rights of the Child has come to the aid of children and decision makers to move the center of gravity of rights more towards the children who were slowly over the years recognized as individuals in their own right. The Chronicle, otherwise known as the voice of the association. For many years, the association has published our Chronicle about current practices in child justice. And as you know, and as Lana referred, I was the editor-in-chief between 2006 and 2018. It became the first online publication. In my final editorial, I wrote that after 24 editions and over 1 million words in each of our 3 languages, I'd loved every minute. My aim was to draw in articles from as many members as possible. I was greatly aided by their willingness to contribute, as well as from many non-members, experts in their fields. I believe the Chronicle did fulfill its sobriquet, the voice of the association, by publishing knowledge, experiences from international sources, and as it is set out in our original aims. There were hundreds of articles, so I'll briefly choose categories, themes which were covered again and again. Justice systems, youth and family and restorative justice, 23 countries. Civil issues, such as adoption, foster care, residence disputes, privacy, surrogacy, unaccompanied children, violence against children, gangs, victims and witnesses, children's rights and the CRC, age of criminal responsibility, and last but not least, detention. I have archived these chronicles. They're online. Eduardo has them too. I also lodged some with IDE in Sion. Eduardo is now in charge, and he is literally making the voice of the association heard, a very good thing. Finally, the guidelines on children in contact with the law. I'm very proud that during my term of office as president, 2014 to 2018, we published our guidelines in English, French, Spanish, and Arabic. It was a bold move, but the realm of children's rights had grown so much in the previous 40 years that it was necessary to do it, and the interests of children as bearers of rights were paramount. How to understand the convention and other instruments if you're not a trained person, how to put the rights into effect. In AIMJF, we believed it would be valuable to all actors in the fields of child justice to bring together the many instruments in a single comprehensive document meant for practical use. We also believed that within our membership, we had the collective knowledge and experience to carry out the project. The agreed aim was to publish a child's rights-based, useful document with sources of information, a readable document unencumbered by dense language, a universal document applicable in all settings, civil, criminal, administrative, traditional, religious. So in 2015, a working group of 8 members from 8 countries from both hemispheres, under the chairmanship of Professor Emeritus Jean Trepanier of the University of Montreal, was set up. Communication was by email. The professor drafted proposals and the team, aided by local working groups, modified them. I was part of this team. The guidelines were agreed by our council in 2016, ratified by the membership in 2017. Later in 2017, I presented them at UNODC in Vienna and at the CRC committee in Geneva. In May 2018, at the UNESCO building in Paris, during the World Congress on Justice for Children, 1,000 copies in 4 languages were given to participants. A practical use workshop was absolutely full to overflowing, was one of the side events. We couldn't have squeezed in a single extra person. People were standing around the edges. The guidelines are now 10 years old. Time, I think, for renewal. I should like to think that they will be refreshed in the near future. So in closing, I have covered my brief briefly, but cannot close without mentioning the leverage we do have at places such as the Council of Europe and the Committee on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. You will remember, of course, that both Jean Zamatin and Renata have been presidents of the Convention Committee as well as presidents of our association. What you may not know is that Judge Clarence Nelson of Samoa was recently vice president. Professor Anne Skelton, a member at one time, was recently president, and Professor Philip Jeffer and Benoit Van Kiersbilk are currently members. So it is good to know that we have people in those places. So I am proud of IAYFJM and its century-long involvement in protecting children appearing in the courts. I trust we will celebrate our 100th birthday in fine style in 2028 or 2030, and for my part, the sooner the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Avril. It's marvelous to hear all the things about our history and the beginning and the end. Not the end.
Not the end.
Not the end, never the end. Thank you very much. I think it's very good that we are talking about we have to be united to promote the rights of the children, perpetrators, victims, and children in family disputes.
Yes.
And we are talking really about our European section. And I would like to invite all my colleagues from Italy, from Poland, from France, from Germany, from Austria, from Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina to join us. Because when we have a lot of people having together the judges and the experts for children, then we are better. So for this time, thank you very much, but we will go on with Renate Winter. Renate Winter, she is an international judge. She was a president of Special Court of Sierra Leone and international judge in Supreme Court in Kosovo and expert for juveniles in Georgia and other countries, for example, Croatia. She was president of our international association, of course, but she is working with international organization, Council of Europe, United Nations, and all the bodies in European Union. Thank you very much, Renate, that you are with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lana, to give me the floor. It was very kind of you to invite me, and it was absolutely fantastic that you brought us all together for this very first and hopefully not last webinar, because I do think it was about time for us, after the long history as described so aptly by Avril, that we are using also the new instruments, as Eduardo is already doing, but not all of us are so capable in modern things. Therefore, it is very, very good that you started this webinar, as I said, hopefully not the last one. I will now start with what it is about the children and us. Because we came, as you have heard, a long way, especially in Europe. We started from a punitive approach all over Europe. We came to a welfare, which is also still available in several of the countries, a welfare system, which is also not, how would I say, apt to adapted to the times we are in. We have developed something like age of criminal responsibility almost all over Europe, with one or two exceptions only. And we have tried, with the assistance of the Convention of the Rights of the Child, to have this age of criminal responsibility not too low. In some countries, still rather low. We have the modern ways of diversion, of alternatives. We have the Convention on the Rights of the Child to help us. And we had to start in telling our colleague judges, and I am especially concentrating on our colleague judges nowadays, with the difference between judges for adults and judges for children. Notwithstanding judges in penal, in admin, or in civil cases. Because it was not understood very quickly by judges who have been working for adults all the time and who had maybe 2-3 cases for children. Because there were no specialized juvenile judges who did juvenile justice only, to make them understood and to make them trained, because training was necessary and information was necessary, how to deal with children, how the brains of children are working, how children can understand, what children can understand. I have been in quite a lot of countries and quite a lot of European countries as well, where I have seen that it was not so clear. I mean, I have seen, if I say I am a very old judge, so I have been traveling a lot from the almost very beginning after World War II, in our courts in the different countries. And there was a huge difference before we started with our training programs, the training programs of the association in quite a lot of countries, and especially in Sion, Switzerland, in the Institute of Child Rights from Jean Zermatten, who has been mentioned already. It was difficult because, first of all, judges said, what do you think? I have to speak in the best interest of the child. What do you mean with best interest? I am a judge. I have to have all interest equally. And it took quite some time until the judges for adults started to understand what the best interest of the child means. And this that this is not a bias for children. That was one thing that we had to deal with. The second thing we had to deal with is, how do you speak with children? It was not self-understanding for quite a lot of judges that one has to speak differently with children than with adults. The children do not understand what adults understood. The children do not react how adults react. The children who do not look at you do not despise you, but are afraid of you, and all these kind of small things. This was where we came from, and we have achieved quite a lot in this regard. I do think we have in almost all countries now in Europe quite specialized juvenile judges with such a training. And now, what is now? Now the pendulum goes back, and I have the feeling in all these right-wing movements that we have all over Europe at the moment, that the pendulum goes back from the restorative approach that we have had back to the punitive approach that I thought we have overcome for good. We have a lot of problems now with the right wing, and especially extreme right wing politicians in quite a lot of European countries. First of all, because they try to convince the population once again that only punishment is the one thing to keep populations safe. You can read more and more in the press that children are dangerous, that children younger than the age of criminal responsibility are dangerous, and that therefore the age of criminal responsibility has to be lowered and lowered and lowered again because they are so dangerous. And the only one answer to dangerous children is prison. This is the typical right-wing approach that we can see and can hear about in almost all European countries. We have another issue, and these are the schools. In schools, there are, in quite a lot of European countries, once again, there are migrant children. And of course, the migrant children are not perfect in the language of the country they are in at the moment. Therefore, we have problems at schools, and teachers have problems at schools, and parents are not happy with schools, and teachers are not happy because they do not have assistants that they would need with having mixed classes from children speaking the language and from children who do not speak the language. All that, once again, goes in direction that children are the big problem of each and everything. We have the parents and the family issues. Parents overstressed, parents overworked, parents stressed by politics, parents financially stressed, parents stressed by Corona, and so on and so on. Violence in family is growing, and it was growing during the times of epidemics. It is still growing now when you think about Christmas, when you think about Easter time, when families should be peacefully together to celebrate, and where the violence and the corporal violence is radically emerging at court and in hospitals. We have the influencers in internet who are very strong in saying that we have to have everything and we have to have it now. And children want to have everything and want to have it now. Another issue that we have to deal with legally, first of all, and at court, second, and in a non-punishable way, hopefully. And we have the attacks of the right wing on the independence of judges. And this is really bad. Because everywhere you can see, in my own country, we have had somebody who said, justice has to follow the politicians. I mean, what? Justice has to follow the politicians? I think the politicians have to follow the judges, no? And this tendency now, where the judges are influenced or try to be influenced, where their independence is attacked, even in Europe, you wouldn't believe it, where politics tries to influence judges to go in a right-wing direction. That is the situation that we have now. We have once again to deal all the time with the so-called very young, dangerous children. Very young, dangerous children that should be in a prison. What do we do with children under the age of criminal responsibility? We have to put them again in prison, or we should put them, according to the wishes of the politics, in prisons. As this is not possible, we have again what we thought we have overcome already, the so-called schools. The special schools, the schools which are for difficult children under the age of criminal responsibilities, and those schools are closed, which means, according to the Convention of the Rights of the Child, according to each and every human rights, they are prisons. This is what we have to deal now. I thought it's long past ago, and it comes back at the moment. We have to advocate for and assist the judges in administration. What about the children on the move? Children on the move are bad in any case. Children on the move have exactly the same rights as all the children in the country they are. Asylum-seeking children, refugee children, children that have been in war situations, coming to our countries. They all have the same rights as the children in our countries. And that has to be understood. And for that, we have to advocate all the time. A Roma child has to have exactly the same protection than any other children in the countries they are. We have the civil problems with child victims of family violence. Victims themselves or witnessing violence against their family members, especially their mothers. Victims, once again, when they have to testify at court. There are not very many countries that have a so-called person of trust coming with the victim and witness children to court. We have still the possibilities, and it becomes, because money is more important, it becomes more difficult. We have children between the parents in divorce cases. And there again, we would have to advocate for child-friendly persons, the persons of trust to be together with those children. We have to protect the child victims, the child victims of so-called ordinary crimes, but especially of violence in the family. We have a lot of instruments. Do they work? Do they now work when police is going again right-wing? And we have the penal situations. As always, we have alternatives that work. We have diversions. Wherever we have diversion, it works. For the right wing, it doesn't work. They say they are wrong. but they say it nevertheless. And it is very easy and sells very easy to say, okay, these very bad children, these dangerous, they have to be put away. We do not need alternatives for those children, and so on. We have to be very careful to go along with alternatives and diversion and to show how they work. In quite a lot of countries, we do not have enough social workers, we do not have enough probation officers, and we have again to ask for them, because diversion and alternatives do not work without probation officers and without social workers. And we have, once again, as Avril said, we have to deal with presence. In several countries in Europe, we have the very good possibility, and even in law, we have the decision that a juvenile judge who sends a child to prison has to visit that child in prison. This is a very good decision, and it should be, if possible, in all of the countries in Europe. We have to advocate for that, because that means that you know what you're doing, that you know where you send the child. And if we have to have presence, then we have to have separate presence, and not only a special wing in adult prison. Because if you have a special wing in an adult prison, there is no prison worldwide, and not in Europe, where there are not possibilities that those two, adults and children, are communicating and learning the worst from each other and changing drugs, because there again, there is no prison worldwide where you do not find drugs. My time is over. And I want to say, we have to have meetings, we have to have congresses, we have to have information sharing, we have to have discussions on webinars about best practices. We have to have advocacy for especially being part in the development of new legislation for children. We have to work positively with media on the trends and to fight the trends if necessary. And we have to research, like Eduardo is doing all the time, and we have to publish it. My list is long. I am so sorry. No. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much. I think the conclusion is why we have to be united, why we have to be together, why we have to share all the knowledge that we know, or some good practices in some countries can be shared to another country, and that's very important. Thank you very much. Now, Eduardo Mello, judge in Brazil, dealing with child protection, youth justice, child victims as a FIDE in human rights. He coordinates the pedagogical activities in São Paulo, State School for Magistrates, Children's Rights. Eduardo is also a researcher, for example, in Brazil, but also international. He coordinates comparative research at our association, and you can read all these researches on our website. Thank you, Eduardo, that you are with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you for inviting us all for this webinar, for this meeting, beginning the new year. So I wish you all a good year with a lot of opportunities for meeting and for discussion our matters. I would also like to congratulate you, Lana, for becoming the new European section president, and to congratulate you as well for beginning such a movement in the region and bringing together so many colleagues that we are in touch with by email, but not always online. So it's very good to have all of you from Italy, Ukraine, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Croatia, England, Austria, and Spain. So I would also like to thank Avril and Renata for facilitating my work, bringing all the history of our association and our current challenges to deal with children's rights. I think we have all all of us do acknowledge that we, in spite of all the differences that might exist between our countries, we have a common history. And many of the legislations in worldwide have followed the same trends at the beginning, transforming themselves from a punitive approach into a welfare approach, and then challenging this human rights-based approach to change legislations, how the judicial system could be improved, and the challenge we still have today. So I had the honor to succeed Avril as editor-in-chief of the Chronicle, a very hard job because she made such a good contribution to our associations with so many publications of extremely high quality. And it was very difficult as well because just after we had the pandemics and all these difficult challenges. But we have in the recent mandates, Marta Pascual after Avril, and now with Dave, and probably in the future with Jorge, who is my candidate for our next president. We are discussing, we're still keeping this focus on the necessity to have an international judicial dialogue. And in this position of editor-in-chief of the Chronicle, I have assumed some other activities trying to promote opportunities for us to be together. So we have changed a little bit the way the Chronicle was structured. Until April time, we had a lot of articles on topics which were very interesting. But nowadays, for people dealing with research, we are all very worried with qualifications of the journals, and this demands a lot of conditions that were avoiding a higher participation of the judges. So in a board discussion, we decided to begin doing research. And research not only with an academic approach, but also as an opportunity for all members to bring their perspective, to bring the good practices that they have in their countries, their challenges as well, the difficulties they are facing to deal with some particular topics that we could compile, bring together into a common discussion as a research, and open other spaces in a synergic movement to create these opportunities for discussion. So we have focused on child participation because it's a very contemporary topic, which is also one of the major things in the guidelines on a child-friendly justice in Europe, also in our own guidelines, and in Latin America, we also have developed a Mercosur guideline, and it's also one of the main topics of the current general comment of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. So we began with child participation in child protection and family matters with 35 countries. Then we moved on to child participation in juvenile justice with around 45 countries, and with child victims. And nowadays we are focusing in this topic that Renate has pointed out, so difficult and challenging, of children below the minimum age of criminal responsibility, and what the countries are doing on that topic. We know that it's a topic that is not so well regulated because we are trying to avoid any kind of intervention in this area. But many countries are doing a lot of things. They are intervening, and sometimes with not so many rights for the children who are being affected being imprisoned or supporting coercive measures. And we have to discuss what is going on. Countries are also developing some strategies to face the situation. So we have also decision, a view from the committee that in these kinds of situations, civil rights should be improved. So should the court be involved in these situations or not? In which measure? So we, on the one hand, we have a movement trying to avoid any kind of contact from children with the judicial system. But on the other hand, we need the judicial system to grant children's rights and to avoid interference and restrictions on their rights. So we have to deal with this double challenge to avoid our intervention, but on the other hand, to improve the way we are working with children and avoid restrictions or deprivation of liberty. So the idea of this the research or surveys is to prepare a basic questionnaire, which is discussed with a group of judges from different countries, just to check if we have a common understanding of what is going on and what are the more important aspects to be addressed. And then our members are invited to write their national reports. We have some very good national reports, people exploring the topic and showing what is going on, the difficulties, but also the good practices. Some others are very objective and succinct, so they don't allow us to have a more deep approach on what is going on. But even though it's a way of granting the possibility of participation of these colleagues and to have an idea, at least superficial, of what is going on in some countries. And based on these reports and on the analysis that we are doing about this material, we are selecting the good practices or the challenges or the new experiences that those countries are developing and organizing webinars. So we try to bring together countries from different parts of the world so they can change their experience. And on the other hand, we are trying to organize study tours. The study tours we're doing it twice a year, once in Europe in October and once in another continent. So we have done it already in Brazil, in South Africa, in Mexico, in Spain, in Barcelona, in Vilnius, in London. And this year we'll have a study tour in June in Canada, in Quebec, followed by a conference on child protection and child participation, and an activity of our association where we have our elections. And in October, probably we are going either to Moldova or to Italy, and next year to Croatia in 2027. And in September, we'll have also a study tour in Colombia. So we are trying in June last year, when we had the World Congress in Madrid, we have also created a Latin American section in our association. So now we have 2 regional sections, and the strategy we are developing in the Latin American, just to inspire you and to help you to think what the European section could also improve in their activities, is to organize, based on the study tours, some other webinars to show what were the impressions of our colleagues, to identify those best practices. We know that it's not everybody that has conditions, professional or family conditions or personal conditions to travel, but it would be a way of sharing the experience and bringing these most important issues to a broader arena to be discussed with everyone. We are also trying to coordinate the study tours with conferences, local conferences. So some countries develop. I know that Italy, you have a lot of Italians here. You have annual congresses. So maybe it would be very important to have one of those study tours at the same time, some days before, as we're doing in Canada, so people from abroad would be able to come to have an insight of what is going on in the country. They could participate if they speak the language, or maybe you could at least organize one activity with these international professionals. One activity that we are doing for some time in those congresses or conferences is to identify at each country what is the most challenging thing at the moment. So let's say, for example, that we do it in Italy, as we have a big participation of Italy now in this group. You identify one issue and bring a case for discussion. And then we invite judges from different countries, and we are going to discuss how this same case would be dealt in our countries. So it's a way to share in a more concrete way what could be other strategies, how we could deal with those kids. For instance, how do we hear the child? Are the lawyers at the same room? Do they have to leave? How do we grant due process of law in this context? There are a lot of practical issues that we are trying to identify in our research. But when we have a practical case, it is very interesting to understand and to bring the opportunity for questions, for debate, and to improve our practices. So I think this is a good strategy that we could include in our activities, and to enhance these opportunities for being together. I think when we meet, I've been to Venice some weeks ago, and I met Eugenia, and we didn't know each other, but Michele put us together. It was a very pleasant lunch. I think this is very important for us to build networks, because when we have a problem, we can call, we can write, and this is the important thing of our association. We are associations, as Avril has mentioned, of individuals, and networks are made by individuals. So we have to create opportunities to be together. And the study tours, the webinars, the conferences are good moments for this these opportunities. So this is some of the contributions that we are trying to develop. We publish twice a year, at least twice a year, newsletter to share all these events like Canada, the study tours, and also the research. And for the research, we normally send messages to our members. So if, for instance, here in Italy, I will send for all of you and all the members. Some of you may volunteer to answer the questionnaire, but it doesn't avoid that other people could write together, or that we could organize something different, because you know that within the same country there are differences, and those differences are interesting to be shared as well. So sometimes, like in Argentina, that it's a federative country, each state has its own legislation. We publish more than one national report, and it's very interesting to see how these different perspectives dialogue within the same country and in a broader area. So this is our current strategies, but I think having this meeting today is also, if I may, Lana, is an invitation to ask you also, as an European section, to suggest other strategies or other ways of being together and to promoting this judicial dialogue. Maybe we could create more opportunities for us to strengthen this network. And so it will be a pleasure to support Ilana in your journey as president, closing my participation. And I invite you, all of you, to join our initiatives of doing this research and also for our study tours. I just want you to remind that the Canadian conference and study tour will be held at the same time as the World Cup. So if any of you want to go to Canada, the prices will rise. And so I suggest you to book your planes as soon as possible. And if you like football, soccer, it would be a good opportunity to join both interests in one travel. So thank you, Lana, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. You are really a spirit of our association. You are pushing us to be more active, to really think about that we will have a section, European section. And when I'm talking about the European section, I'm not talking about European Union. I'm talking about all the countries that they are in the continent of Europe. So we can be together and we can do a lot of good things. So this time I'm asking Jorge Jimenez Martin, who is vice president of our association. He was a director of Spanish Judicial School, also a judge in Spain. He promotes judicial integrity through judicial training. And Jorge is involved in the organization of the next World Congress. Thank you very much, Jorge, that you are with us.
Thank you very much, Lana. Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings to everyone from Barcelona. It's a pleasure to participate in this meeting, in this workshop. I give you thanks, Lana, and thanking everyone who spoke for these interesting contributions. I think that these contributions have been very inspiring interventions. I believe it's very important to continue strengthening our association and especially in the European section. Even more so in difficult times when children continue to be vulnerable, perhaps increasing so, and where our societies, the reforms that are being made, the new law that are being approved, and the conflicts and wars that are taking place mean that children are the great forgotten ones. I completely agree with Renata. I feel that there is a lot of talk about children's rights, but the reality is that we are living in difficult times where the future of our societies and the possibility of changing things life with children is very interesting. All the topic that they spoke in this meeting, like you tell Lana, I'm a juvenile justice judge in Spain. I am a specialist judge who for several years have been serving as deputy president on the board of the association alongside David Stuckey from the USA as president, Andrea Santos Sousa from Brazil as secretary general, Ursina Weidkun from Switzerland as deputy secretary general, Michele Termine from Italy as treasurer, and Eduardo Melo from Brazil as a member of the council and chief editor of Crónica. Our goal has been to lead the association over the last few years by organizing various activities, which Eduardo has mentioned, and holding monthly virtual meetings. I think that is the moment to increasing membership, increasing the participation, and activities must be our next challenges. For this, for our association, we have different types of members within the association. The first one is the ordinary members. The ordinary membership may only be granted to judges and magistrates who hold or have held a position in a juvenile or family court and who perform similar functions. Ordinary members must pay an annual fee. The second type of members in our association is the National Association. This is an special position. They may be National Association of Judges, Magistrates, and other persons who share in whole or in part the objectives of the association and are composed of at least 5 persons. They are admitted by the board. In the case of rejection or objection, an appeal may be lodged with the council of the association. They may organize themselves in whatever manner they deem most appropriate, provided that they comply with this status. Members of National Association are collectively affiliated to the association and pay their membership fees through their association in the prescribed amounts. National associations are separate bodies from the association, and similarly, their property is also separate from that of the association. They cannot bind the association in any way vis-a-vis its member of third parties. The third one is the status of associate members. This status is for organizations, especially groups, or those persons who, due to their qualification in this field, their skills, and their achievements, can contribute to the work of the association and can be considered associate members. They will be admitted by the General Secretariat. Associate members may take part in the work of the association. They must pay an annual subscription of the amount fixed by the council. And the last one position is the honorary members. The honorary members are people who have provided notable service to the association, may be appointed honorary members by the General Assembly. Honorary members don't pay a subscription and have the right to vote at the General Assemblies. To obtain the quality of ordinary member or associate member, a request is made in writing to the secretary or to the treasurer. To obtain the quality of the National Association, a written request is made to the board. The contribution of the member, I spoke about this, is an annual fee. It's different from the members of the National Association. One of the peculiarities of our association is that you can find regional section. Before Eduardo spoke about the 2 regional sections that we have, but ordinary members and any national association whose objectives, goals, and programs are in accordance with those of the International Association of Judges and Family Judges and Magistrates may apply to the Council for authorization to create a regional section. Apart from the activities that Eduardo has explained, April spoke about this, our association organizes every 4 years a World Congress with its partners. The International Congress has been the culmination of the work of our association. They are an opportunity for exchange between people from all over the world who are dedicated to the protection of children or the family, to discuss matters that are the responsibility of the family courts and juvenile courts. The themes of these congresses not only reflect the full range of professional issues, but also current social and political issues, the impact of the protection of justice of minors and the family. It's only from the 5th Congress in Brussels 1958, the association adopted a general theme. But since the 2018 Congress in Paris, April told this, the organization of the Congress has been the responsibility of the Global Initiative on Justice with Children. This initiative is a joint program developed by a group of international organizations, basically the OMS, Penal Reform International, Global Campus of Human Rights, and our association, to address the most current issues related to the children in contact and conflict with the law. The global initiative on justice with children was launched in 2019 at the Palais des Nations in Geneva in the context of the 30th anniversary of the Convention of the Right of the Child. The feeling is that within this global initiative, our association has lost participation for various reasons. Our aim is to work toward greater participation and protagonism in these congresses. Work is now focused on preparation for the next Congress. This Congress will be held in 2028 in another country. It seems that Kuwait is the candidate, but this has not yet been completely decided. Last week, there was a meeting in Venice between the various members of the initiative and interested associations and groups to work on the organization of the conference. And the idea is to appoint an independent coordinator and for different organizations to work together. Actually, the conference coalition members is large. In this moment are Penal Reform International, Terre des Hommes, Global Campus of Human Rights, our association, Defense for Children International, Institute for Inspiring Children's Futures, International Center for Justice Alliance, and Baker McKenzie. I don't know what is the final way to organize this Congress, but something is changing. The last coordinator left the position, and we have to participate in this organization and have greater visibility and prominence, I think. It may be advisable to consider organizing the association's own Congress without prejudice to participating in the World Congress and in that initiative. In this moment, is something that we have discussed in the board and we have discussed in the council and perhaps in the assembly, because perhaps it's interesting to have our Congress, our own Congress, between the World Congress, perhaps, more specifically for our members, because the World Congress is in this moment is a big Congress with different institutions and different interests in different fields and different purposes, I afraid. I think that is all that I have to say, but I think that we have many challenges to strengthen our association, specifically when we are going to have the centenary, our birthday, like April told us in 2 years, I think. I just wanted to finish by emphasizing how happy I am to be participating in this meeting, in this workshop, and the possibility that it opens to the European section to carry out more activity, to having greater communication between members. And I think it's a good news to have this webinar. It's a good news. Your position like president of the European section, Lana, I am at your disposal to work to strengthen this section, to strengthen our association. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jorge. It was really good to see what we will have in the future about our congresses, about our thinking as association, what we will participate. I would like to share also with all our colleagues. We are only 11, so here we are 4. And for 9 colleagues, if they want to make a question or something to say about the association, or maybe to put in the chat.
I would, Lana, I would like to say something.
Yeah, thank you.
As you mentioned in the beginning, I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I'm very glad to be the part of this meeting. First of all, I want to say my impressions, because it is my very first time to participate in this kind of meeting. Even I'm a judge many years. I have rich experience to be the judge in criminal cases, including juvenile crimes. That's why it is very interesting for me as judge from Bosnia and Herzegovina that this kind of association is existing and very, very important for children rights, and I will be glad that Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially judges and prosecutors from Bosnia and Herzegovina, to be involved in this kind of activity. Even in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have a solid framework, solid court practice, but we have so many issues and so many problems what we face in daily basis, and that's why it's very important to share our informations with the other countries and to participate in some kind of these webinar meetings, some workshops or conferences. It will be very, very good. And that's why when I heard Renata, when she recommended in her speech, I think it will be useful to share informations from each countries what are interested to be the part of this association, which means it will be very good to emphasize some problems. Maybe we have the same or similar problems in our systems concerning protection children or domestic violence or human beings trafficking. There are so many problems where children involved in those problems. And that's why it will be interesting to present very short presentations from each countries, what is going in that countries, and to share information. I don't know what is possible to create that activities, but I think it will be very useful and interesting, and I would be glad to hear, is there some payment of membership of this association, because I don't have informations in that way, and I will be glad to be the part of those activities very strong, and I will be my presentation or my role, I will be glad to involve in everything. And that's why I'm very glad that I meet you and heard so good speakers in this field, and hopefully will be continue our cooperation. Thank you.
Aditha, thank you very much. The judge from Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm so pleased that you are with us. I think we will have a lot of other judges coming to the European section. But I would like to share with you on the website of our association, you have how to register it as a member. So it's not so difficult. I think it's very easy how to know and how to be a member. I would like to hear another persons who want to share something with us. Is there any in chat? No. So I think it's evening for every one of us. So I would like to conclude. Thank you for all my really distinguished speakers. And I'm so glad that we have not so many, but some of my colleagues that I mailed all the things about our webinar. And I think the aim of this meeting was not only the present of our association, it was also to involve all the people who want to be the members of the section of European section if in our association. So Avril and Renata spoke about the history of the association and what are the most, I will say today, problems with the children and their rights. And I think it's very good that Eduardo was talking about what we have achieved and what research we have done. So that encourage us that we are thinking about what can we do as members of the section of European section, and that we can achieve some support from the association in webinars, in workshops, in study visit, in conferences, congresses, and also it's very important, Adesa, that you told us that we have to share what do we have in our countries and what are the best practice, for example, in Europe when we are talking about the European section. So thank you all. I think it was really a good webinar.
Thank you, Lana. See you.
See you.
You.
I've written our website in the chat, so if someone wants to join as a member, you can do it through there. It's 50 euros per year, so it's not so much. So hope to see you, Adesa, with us and also the Italian colleagues. Thank you, Lana.
Thank you, Lana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll stop the recording.
Thank you, dear colleagues.